After I saw them open that beer, I thought, I got nothing, so. How many of you, let me know by applause, how many of you have met a homeless person? Good many of you. How many of you know a homeless person who has escaped homelessness? Good. Some, not as many. We were told when we were invited to come here and speak, think big, dream big, talk big. And so I thought, okay, my talk is going to be how to end homelessness. But then I thought, we could do bigger than that. How about how to end homelessness and heal your own soul at the same time? All right, so that's what we're going to talk about today. The fact is, most people don't even want to talk about homelessness, not because they're uncaring, not because they're hard-hearted. Most people don't want to talk about homelessness or try to do anything about homelessness because they just can't imagine how what they have to offer intersects with this incredible social problem. So it's apathy born of feeling overwhelmed. And that's a very common feeling that a lot of people have when it comes to the idea of ending homelessness. And so, I work at the Urban Ministry Center, and we work with homeless people all day, and we do things that you'd be very familiar with: housing, shelter, substance abuse treatment, counseling, a whole lot of different services. But most people still don't get how that's doing anything about homelessness. And so I want to share a thought with you. Frederick Buechner is one of my favorite writers. And his definition of vocation really grabbed me when he said vocation is the place where our deep gladness meets the world's deep need. Now, I'm not going to talk about vocation, but I'm going to talk about those two other phrases. Our deep gladness meeting the world's deep needs. Where do I find such a place? Where does such an intersection occur? Well, I'm humbled and blessed to suggest that maybe the Urban Ministry Center could be one of those places. We get our mail at 945 North College, but you might say our address really is at the intersection of human gladness and deep human need. Since we began our ministry in December of 1994, we made up our minds that everything we did had to have a volunteer component or we weren't going to do it. Because our goal was not only to change the lives of homeless people, our goal was to change the whole community's perspective on homelessness. And we thought the best way to do that was to invite people to come and be a part of what we do. And so we rocked along for about 8 years, involving a lot of people in the community in our counseling, driving the van, answering the phones, making lunch, and so forth. And then one day, a woman named Ingrid walks in. Ingrid says, I want to help. Cool, Ingrid. We love this. Let me tell you about all our volunteer jobs. So we went over all the volunteer jobs and how you do them and said, what do you think? And she very politely said, that's fine. I don't want to do any of that. Well, okay, Ingrid, what are you doing here? She says, I'm an artist, and I want to do art with homeless people. Well, I'm sorry to say that I have been quoted about 1 million times on my response to Ingrid that day, which was, Ingrid, we're not here to have happier homeless people. We're here to get people out of homelessness. Well, my mission statement, though, ringing in the back of my head says we're going to give Ingrid a chance to do art. But I was very skeptical. And I was skeptical not because of Ingrid's skills or her passion or her deep gladness. I was skeptical because of my own experience. I was thinking back to my own childhood when I was trying to glue popsicle sticks together, and make a birdhouse or something, and then the bird gets stuck in the glue. And I just thought, this is not going to help us, but we're going to give Ingrid a chance. And so Ingrid comes down, and sure enough, the first times she's down there, she's got these arts and crafts kinds of activities, and people are doing them. I'm thinking, all right, this will go away soon, I'm sure. And then she comes to me and says, you know that wall out there that runs the length of our property, this old concrete wall, runs from North College all the way to North Tryon. And it's about 5 feet high and then goes up and it's like 15 feet high. Then it comes back down. It's 200 feet long. She says, that would make a great canvas. I said, Ingrid, I have no money to paint that wall. She goes, don't worry about the money. I'll take care of that. So she gets a small grant from the Arts and Science Council. And I'm still just thinking, oh, when is this lady going to go away? And the next day I look out and Ingrid and a couple of homeless guys are pressure washing that wall. And the next day I look out the window and Ingrid and those same 2 guys are putting a primer coat of paint on that wall, all 200 feet of it. And then the next week, Ingrid's out there by herself. And for a week, she is painting the outline of a skyline on that wall. And she's leaving these big blank spaces, squares and rectangles and circles, and she's painting them white. And so I go out and I say, Ingrid, what are all these spaces about? She says, well, when I finish the skyline, I'm going to invite homeless people to come, and they're going to claim one space, and they can paint anything they want in that space. I said, Ingrid, I know this is your deep gladness, but these are people who are struggling to stay warm and dried, trying to stay safe, trying to get something to eat. They're not going to paint your wall. She says, well, I want to invite them anyway. So the next Monday, I've got a bunch of meetings in the morning. I get to the office late. I pull my car around the corner. I come in the gate, and what do I see? 75 homeless people lined up painting that wall. That's Ingrid. So I'm watching 75 homeless people painting, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? And I look over and I see Johnny. Johnny is the meanest, orneriest, most troublesome homeless guy I knew at the time. And I walk over and I say, Johnny, tell me, why are you painting this wall? Well, first he says, do you care? And I said, no, Johnny, really, why are you painting this wall? And then I see him start to kind of change his expression. And he looks at me and he says, this reminds me of Grandma back in Detroit when I was a kid. We used to paint together. Well, you know how you have those moments in your life where something comes to you and you don't know where it came from, but you're glad it did? I had one of those moments, and out of my mouth, I heard myself saying, Johnny, let's go call Grandma. He goes, no, I can't. I burned all my bridges. I stole money from her. I disappointed her in every which way. I can't do it. I said, let's go call Grandma. So he lays down his paintbrush. We're heading to my office, and I am praying desperately, God, let Grandma be alive and let Grandma have a phone. So we get into my office, and he picks up the phone, he dials Grandma, and I can hear half the conversation, but I know what's going on. He says, Grandma, you wouldn't believe what I'm doing. I'm painting. And I hear her saying, I can just imagine, she's saying, Johnny, we've missed you. We've been worried about you. We've been so concerned. We wish you'd come home. So we helped Johnny get a bus ticket back to Detroit. A week later, I get a note saying, living with Grandma, entering a treatment program. About 6 weeks later, I get a note. I'm finished. I'm clean and sober. I'm looking for work and my own place to live. So I'm thinking about Ingrid's... So I'm thinking about Ingrid's deep gladness, meeting the deep need of Johnny and all those other homeless people. And I finally had to say to myself, I guess we're in the art business. Well, I'm telling that same story to a group of UNCC students a couple of years later, and I'm telling the Ingrid story to them. And when I finish the story, a young woman raises her hand in the back and she says, have you ever thought about playing soccer with homeless people? And I said, of course not. And she says, well, I'm a soccer player, and I'd like to be like Ingrid and start a soccer team here at the Urban Ministry Center. So I think, okay, here we go again. Well, here's the way things work. Ingrid had moved on after launching our art program in 2002, and I hired a young guy who was a Davidson graduate to come and run the art program, and just happened he had been the captain of the Davidson soccer team. So Jessica, this young UNCC student, who out of her deep gladness said, I want to start a soccer team with homeless people, I joined her with Lawrence, and they created a soccer team. And the first day we had soccer practice, we had a bunch of homeless guys show up, and they're wearing steel-toed boots and blue jeans and hoodies and looked like anything but a soccer team. But we started a soccer team. And we joined a local league, and we're playing against a bunch of bankers and lawyers and young guys. And we got all our homeless guys out there running around not knowing anything about soccer, and we didn't win a game. And in fact, there was one team that decided not to play us. They were so afraid of our players. But we started the soccer. But the key was that when we started the soccer team, we said, here's what we're going to do. If you're going to be on the soccer team, we want you to sit down with us, and we want you to talk about your life's goals. What are you going to do in the next 3 hours? What are you going to be doing in the next 3 days, the next 3 weeks, the next 3 months? And all of a sudden, while we're playing soccer, the camaraderie and the teamwork and support of Jessica and her passion, suddenly soccer players started leaving the team because they were finding work and they were finding housing and they were moving on. And so we kept, adding new players to the soccer team. And then one day the phone rings. This guy introduces himself, says he's in New York City. And he said, this young woman came by my office named Jessica, telling me about your soccer program down there in Charlotte. I said, oh, really? He goes, it's amazing what you all are doing with these people. How would you all like to represent the United States in the World Cup of homeless soccer? I said, that'd be really cool, but there's no such thing. He goes, actually, there is. 30 countries. Homeless soccer teams from 30 countries are gathering in Edinburgh, Scotland later this year, and we want you all to represent the United States. We have a soccer team made up of guys, many of them had hardly ever been off North Tryon Street, out of Mecklenburg County, let alone get on an airplane and fly across the Atlantic Ocean. But we called some friends at Coca-Cola, Bank of America, and we said, we got a crazy idea, would you help us do it? They said, yeah, we'll help you do it. So we sent a team to Edinburgh, Scotland to play against 30 other countries, representing the United States. We did not win one game, but we won the Fair Play Trophy, which meant more to us than winning a game. Out of Ingrid's deep gladness in soccer, she met the world's deep need, and lives were changed. And lives were changed to such an extent that we started telling other people about our soccer program in other communities. And today, there are now homeless soccer teams in 23 cities across America, from LA, San Francisco, New York, Miami, and it all was born out in our parking lot because Jessica had a deep gladness that met a deep need. And so we are so proud of that soccer program. And now not only is there a World Cup, but now there's a USA Cup. And I was so proud of our team who in the middle of Times Square in New York City this past summer finished second among those 23 cities. And we're really proud of them. Yeah. All of you remember Hurricane Katrina. And do you remember how in New Orleans, to help people out, supposedly, they put a bunch of poor people in airplanes and then sent them to cities all over the country? Remember that? One of those planes landed in Charlotte, at least one that I know of. And on that plane was a man named Darren. And Darren was sleeping on a cot out at the old Coliseum on West Tyvola, wondering what his future would bring. And one of the volunteers helping out there said, Darren, I go down to this place called their ministry center, and I lead these brief prayer services they have before lunch. Now, we are a faith-based organization, but we don't make anybody do anything religious in order to get their lunch or to receive any other services, but it's an offering we make. And so Darren, not having anything else to do, thought, well, I'll go along with this guy and just see what's going on. So they come down one day. And they're there, and so over the loudspeaker, the person announces, prayer service getting ready to begin in the NA room, all are welcome. Nobody comes in. So we wait a couple of minutes. Prayer service in the NA room, all are welcome, starting now in the NA room. Nothing. So Darren, this stranger this refugee, evacuee from New Orleans, walks out of the NA room, walks out our front door, and goes out onto our front patio overlooking the street where all our crowd is gathered. And in the most beautiful, soulful, powerful voice, he begins singing this gospel song. Pretty soon, one homeless person walks over to get closer, then another, and another, till there's finally a big crowd around. And without missing a note, Darren turns and he walks back toward the door, and the crowd just falls into step with him. And he continues singing the whole time he's walking into the building, and the crowd of homeless people begins singing with him. And they go inside for the prayer service. That day gave birth to what became the Voices of Love Gospel Choir. I'm happy to say that Dan Murray's wife, Katie, is here, who sings in that choir with us on occasion. What we didn't know that day about Darren was that he had a pretty big reputation back in New Orleans for being a stage performer and a musician and singer. We had no idea. What we also didn't know that day was that Darren was very sick. But he began giving his deep gladness to the deep need of our homeless folks through gospel music. And they created this choir, and the choir began singing in venues all over the city. The choir flourished and grew. The lives of the choir members flourished and grew. But Darren's health continued to wane. And so he applied for disability income so that he could qualify for Medicaid and get medical care that he needed. You may not know that the last survey done was that the average wait for approval for your disability income in North Carolina is 600 days. Darren died waiting for his disability benefits. And we miss Darren, but the choir goes on. And what we miss for Darren, that out of his deep gladness, meeting this deep human need, what he missed was the choir continuing to grow and flourish and sing all over the community. Darren missed them recording their first CD. And now this year, Darren has missed one of the choir members being invited to Hollywood to compete on American Idol. Now, we've got other programs that have grown out of this. We started with this mission that we're going to invite people to come and help us. But they came and they did the things we thought up. And with Ingrid and Jessica and Darren, we changed our whole philosophy from come and help us do what we've decided needs to be done to come and tell us what you have to offer. And let's see whether we can make it happen with homeless people. And now we've got organic gardening and we've got Running Works, and Justin's here somewhere from the Running Works program. We just had a guy run a 50K race. 50K, that's like 32 miles. Now, he's mentally ill. He cycled through about 15 personalities during those 32 miles. But he now believes he can do anything. Someone's deep gladness met the world's deep need. What all of these people have in common is they were not motivated by pity. Pity does not bring us together. It creates distance and condescension. And pity implies that I have the resources and the responsibility and the means to stop your suffering. But by being motivated by their deep gladness, they were connecting with the deep gladness in the other. And that deep gladness then made those people capable of addressing their own suffering and their own misery and create their own relief and their own hope. Every single person, you've heard this 10 times already today, but every single person in this room has at their core some deep gladness that is searching for an intersection with the world's deep need. Do you believe that?
Yes.
Will you do something about it? Let me know if you're going to do something about it. It may not be to end homelessness, but I promise you it will heal your own soul. Thank you very much.